for so long. Everyone on CLG had over 2,000 gold. Really, they starved WE in wards. WE's not going to let that happen again. FCZF has his 5, but he has spent so much gold on wards. Look at his items. Only the 2 G10 items, has yet to upgrade his boots. He doesn't have any gold left. That's how many wards CLG has cleared out with oracles. Completely starved through the 10,000. He's never going to be able to build his items. The Baron buff now out. Yellow Peak down to Froggen, and it's just going to be the creep waves getting pushed. Their items are big. Do they now have the confidence to win a team fight, or are they just going to slowly try and starve WE out? Because I was thinking earlier that they were taking it a bit too slow, but they know what they're doing, it seems. They've gotten the Baron, they've got the inhibitor, and they do seem to be in control, as slow as it may be.
Well, they have both blue buffs. They have Guardian Angels across the board now. With Oriana also, Froggen stacking that one in there. We have the tankiest of tanks, Wicked. We have, he's got Iron Locket of Solari in there now just to get that shield going as well. You never know when you need it. Snoopay, of course, has been huge for a long time. That's 6 stacks. He's got a Thorn Mail on him now. So Wei Zhao is not going to be targeting him. And they could just walk into this turret. And honestly, they could probably stand tanking it for about 10 minutes and still not go down. But Team WE, there's a ward there, Wicked. You can see it. We know you can see it. In fact, they've got 2 oracles now. Wicked and Crepo. They do get the ward. People are cheering ward kills now. It's starting to stretch out that much.
Anything that happens, man, because this game has been so much poking over and over. I think CLG is actually waiting for the next Baron. Another ward kill. The crowd goes wild, and now they're in to hit the tower, getting a bit of damage down.
Look how quick they are to react to separate on that, though. The Rupture going in there. They just want to try and catch someone out here. Of course, Super Minions still going up the mid lane now, so they have to deal with this one. There is a big double creep wave going in towards that bottom turret as well. Remember, the bottom turret had damage done to it already. We'd like to see how much that's got left on it. I don't think it's going to be too much, though. I'll have a quick look myself, actually.
About half health at the moment, so that is more damage than the top. They're just seemingly getting them both a bit low. Honestly, I think they're going to wait for the next Baron. Another ward kill, fantastically done there. The crowd goes wild, and they're just poking this tower ever so slowly.
Ever so slowly, but the bottom turret is down to half health already here, so the bottom turret's getting poked itself. So that one is slowly but surely getting poked down. This top one now down to half health. There's Super Minions on the Nexus turret as well at the moment. So Team WE, they're going to have to react to this one sooner or later. You can see the Nexus turret starting to take damage. Wei Zhao's actually backed away. He's got 2 Super Minions coming. The Nexus turret's on half health already. The 2 Super Minions are going to take that Nexus turret down. If they do not react to this one, they're still getting beaten down. That Nexus turret is getting very low. Finally, they're going to have to react to it. They get a spawn wave. And again, Team WE are kind of mixed. What do we do about this? How do we deal with it? Wei Zhao's had to come across and stop that spawn point, and that's giving CLG time to start poking on that turret as another ward goes down.
Yellow Peak getting rich off of wards, and if we learned anything from the first game here, it's that WE does not handle these late stall games as well as CLG.EU. They haven't known how to react.
Bot lane's going to go down. Bot lane
Bot lane might go down.
Bot lane turret has got Super Minions on it and is already gone. And you can see CLG, their stall is just,
they're just starving,
slowly but surely taking that turret out. And there's just nothing that Team WE can do about this. And they're going to lose out this team fight surely when it eventually happens.
If it ever happens, because if they kill as the wards go down, if they manage to kill all 3 inhibitors, they'll eventually win the game without ever having a team fight,
Lord,
which may be their
back.
plan. And the Baron's up. Hold on, how much gold does FCZF have? He's got 560. How many wards can he buy with that? They might be able to rush this Baron down, actually. W not charging. They're stuck in their base. They could just rush this down.
They cannot do a thing about it. The Super Minions have kept them pinned. They've got minions all over the place. So CLG going to pick up this Baron for free. And they're going to continue their pushing dominance as the crowd goes wild as a free Baron gets picked up. 57 minutes 30. CLG going for the record in this one.
The record, 13 kills overall, 57 minutes, kills per minute, definitely setting records for this tournament, especially the mid inhibitor is respawned, but they now have the Baron. Max items pretty much there, you can see. Filling up his inventory of wards is Crepo. They probably want to take down that inhibitor next before going for the top towers because the side lanes will be pushed. They're going to make sure they get that under control. They all have big amounts of items. They're picking up their buffs right now. Hate to say it, I think they're going to take it slow.
In contrast, Taipei Assassins versus Moscow 5, I feel, will not quite be at the same pace as this game. That one will be quite frenetic. I can only apologize if anyone's dragged their parents down today to come and watch this one. It's definitely a slower game than we normally used to, but CLG.EU, they are the kings of grind, and they are making it work for them. They came back from a 1-0 down. They are 1-1. They're going to pick a dragon up because, you know, at 59 minutes, why not?
You need that. Clearly, the small gold advantage, and look at this. Everything. These fans are rambunctious. They have so much energy, and it's just seeping out of them at every moment here.
It's been bottled up for some time, I think you'll find, Jack. They are just finally let loose. So, the mid lane, you can see the inhibitor is back up. CLG, finally, with the Baron, are going to push for this one. There's another ward going down. Again and again.
Oh, and here they come!
Oh, Messiah's going to get caught, got flashed out. That's going to be the crescendo going across. Chowmei's going to go in there. FCZM having to use some of his ward to try and back them away. Clearlove is going to dive in. They are going to go for this fight. Clearlove getting actually feast. know. I mean, Weejav was on full health. He could have pulled something crazy off there. Wicked could have definitely tanked the damage. But Froggen and Yellow Pete, they are the big damage dealers. They could have easily dealt with that combo. I honestly, I have no idea.
I feel like it was about to end in a lot of ways, but I'm not 100% certain it would have, but it looked like they had the Baron. And as you say, Snoop and Crep are really the supports in that team. The three main dealers, Malphite, Orianna, and Ezreal, they were all alive and at full health. So what a terrible time to have this happen.
Yeah, let's rewind just a little bit. You know, okay, obviously we know kind of like where we're at in the status quo of this game. Let's talk a little bit about the pace of the game leading up to this moment, because you're sitting in back. We talked about it before. Both teams having to refocus, knowing it's a $75,000 game, but more importantly, the game that's going to advance them to the semifinals. It really seemed like both teams were upping their cautionary level in terms of play.
And CLG.EU knows cautionary play better than anyone in the world. They know exactly what team comps win at 60 minutes versus others. And even though we in the booth were saying that they needed the force, it didn't look like they actually needed to, because slow as it may, as controlled as it may be, they really they were working on their way of winning that game, taking no risks, not even the slightest thing of risk. And it was the most controlled slow League of Legends I really have ever seen.
So a follow-up question to that then, Jack. In a situation where you're not taking those risks, we saw the dance around Baron that led up to this particular point right here. Do you think that maybe CLG is sitting up there going, maybe we should have gone, like maybe there was an opportunity we could have closed this and found victory prior to this moment in the game?
They probably could have found victory earlier on, in all honesty. Any kind of risks, they did have the advantage from the 25-minute mark to the 60-minute mark. They were seemingly always a little bit ahead, and it was just a matter of the most cautious play in the history of League of Legends.
I mean, hindsight's 20/20 always, so you can't really dwell on those types of things. But on the flip side, you had WE and where they were sitting at. What are your thoughts on where they were? And I mean, obviously, turret advantage definitely seemed to be going towards CLG.EU. Obviously, the gold advantage, about 6,000 in favor of CLG.EU. But WE, they weren't going to surrender. They felt like they had a chance to go on. What do you feel like needed to happen for WE in order to make this game a surefire victory for them? Was it just like a guaranteed solid win in a team fight?
The problem with WE's composition going into that one is it's almost the same mistake they fell into in Game 2. CLG had more control over where team fights happened. And since they didn't want to fight, fights didn't happen. CLG had the advantage from very early, and WE never felt confident trying to go in. If Nocturne goes in, everyone has to follow. But if everyone follows when you're weaker, you're just going to lose the game. And they were also being cautious, waiting for CLG to make a mistake, and that was just never happening.
And I'm just going to also notice that there was a creep wave big enough to take that top turret down as well. So that top turret was going to go. The bottom turret had nothing.
Amazing.
The middle was naked. Yet CLG have still got two inner turrets there. They've not even had their base touched. They've not even got close to touching it. It's such a huge advantage for CLG.EU. And I hate to say their long game's played against them, but maybe it has.
It's a little crazy to think that this is game one of today, right? Like, I mean, of all of the quarterfinals that we saw, this one was already gearing up to be explosive from the beginning. It certainly has delivered in more ways than one. But now to think that there's still semifinal number 1 and semifinal number 2 waiting in the shadows behind this one, with additionally 3 awesome teams and waiting for the fourth to come out.
That's the thing, that whoever wins this one has gone through an epic long struggle. You see it. Let's use tennis example. You know, when you have those epic long matches the day before, and you've got to go into the next day. You know, these are on the same day. They're going to have. We must be getting close to 5 hours. We must be getting close to at least 4 or 5 hours for these guys to be sat on that stage. Because obviously, from the time we prepped earlier on this morning, they were there, prepared, set up, and then to have a best of 3 on the back of that.
Yeah, and you know what? Crepo from CLG made mention of this. You know, that one of their concerns coming in today was the fact that if we win that first game, it's only going to give us that little amount of time. We actually spoke about that yesterday. You made the good statement saying, well, you know, they've got to get to the point of being, you know, they've got to get to the point of being prepared beforehand anyway. But, you know, this just kind of, you know, maybe in the back of his head, it's going to be something else they'll be thinking about. I don't know.
They have more endurance than I think any other team, at least. They've played through the marathon games. They've been to MLG Anaheim's, and those games are marathons. Sometimes those players play for 12 or 13 hours. It's really been extremely strong for them. And I got a question, actually. Is there a precedent for something like this happening in esports? Because clearly, when you're playing, internet can go down, computers can malfunction. What's happened in the past in other big events?
You know, how do you measure victory in a game in which victory is only decided once a team concedes? It's really, really difficult to do. And you think about a lot of the esports games of past, and there's not really one. I mean, unless there's a specific rule that said, well, we go by who has the most kills. But we all know that that doesn't necessarily measure that means I won. So, no, there's not really a precedence, and I feel like this is one of these things that as esports continues to evolve and develop, you know, more concrete rule sets come into play. But again, how do you take a complex game like this and be able to, you can't, there's no machine you can put this game into and it spits out, well, this team was in the lead, therefore they deserve the win. It's just, it.
Because how would you judge it? I mean, from my point of view, yes, CLG were going to win, but it would have to be the ultimate in sportsmanship to say we're going to accept defeat, because that's $2 million in this tournament.
You know, and then you think back to Game 2, the fact that WE, they accept the regame, and that's how it happens.
And they felt like they were in control on that second game because they were in control. They'd won the early game, and they were really, they had the initiations. They'd taken Snoopy out of the game in a lot of ways. They just had to go right back into it.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of how it shapes out, and it's just crazy to think that should we go on, you know, whether it's a continuation of this or another, I don't know at this point, but I mean, the epicness of this game has like gone up levels upon levels as it's gone on, and I just want to say you guys are troopers, man. You've been really holding it down for the last 4.5, almost 5 hours. So
as
great
much
job.
as I hate to say it, when CLG.EU are involved, I'm used to it. I expected this to be a long one. Not quite this long.
Not in this way.
Not quite with a remake, and not in this way. I do not want this to happen, that's for sure. But when CLG.EU are involved, I am very much prepared for some craziness.
Well, what were we at? 63 minutes in that game, still waiting to find out exactly what's going to happen. Again, the players really having to think about what they're going to do from the situation forward. Can't let this interrupt their thought process, their focus. But, I mean, it's now to the point where that's really hard to ask of a player, of a team. I don't know about you guys, but I was sitting down here. It kind of looked like CLG was getting ready to fire those nitrous boosters and just take it all the way to the home stretch. But the faces on our players as this happened, we've seen so much emotion this weekend. Some great moments of emotion. But that was, to me, one of the most sort of impactful emotions, seeing that face like literally go from a moment of focus to like, my God, what just happened?
Yeah. And I couldn't, when we were here, I was looking around the crowd, everyone immediately just stood up, just out of reaction, because they just, how is this? And no matter what, like, this is going to be remembered for a really long time. I'm going to be honest, there's so much that's happened.
For good or bad reasons.
For good or bad reasons. But this is a moment that I still don't know what's going to happen and how this is going to conclude.
Yeah, I mean, but you are absolutely right. There's a lot of moments in the history of esports that we remember because of things like this. But, even if the issues get resolved, I think that it already starts to build this rivalry between the two teams, whether directly or indirectly. They've just recently had the show match. Of course, CLG coming off of a victory from that one, but now this happening at the World Playoffs is certainly just going to fuel that a little bit more. Friendly, of course, a friendly rivalry, but it adds to another chapter of these two teams' ongoing struggle against one another in competitive play.
Yeah, and hopefully we're going to get told what is exactly happening. I guess the admins are probably having some heart palpitations out the back, trying to figure out how they deal with this. I can see someone on the stage right now behind me, sort of there. If I can get my judge right, that's Team WE right there. They're all sat at their desks still, so nothing is happening between them. Obviously, the right guys are on this one. We are at the Season 2 finals, and if we went to a remake, chat, big if,
I mean, I
How do you take
speculate.
it?
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, you can speculate ad infinity because there was so much back and forth. They got the Orianna. It seemed like CLG had won the mind game coming into, I'm going to call it game 4, because if we go into a game 5, I mean, it would be a natural best of 5. Like, think about it, assuming War of the Elite had the second game, which they had a lead, assuming CLG had the fourth game, we would be tied 2-2.
Does that mean we're going to go blind pick? Everyone wants that one.
You know, I think back to when a lot of people were discussing the group stages, and obviously we can see their teams discussing with the admins, the staff here.
I'm judging by Crepo's reaction there. They've just been told remake. And I'm seeing shaking of heads from Team WE like, no.
Yeah, and going back to my point, during the Group A and Group B, there was a lot of talk. There was this sort of hush whispers about, these potential three-way ties that could take place, and the fact that you could literally go into an infinite loop of games if certain scenarios happen. And I don't know that anyone thought it was going to be the quarterfinals match where this infinite loop would actually take place. But
yeah, that would have been horrible if that happened in playoffs as well. Honestly, I don't know. I mean, we talked about the mindset of the fact that we had that remake. CLG.EU seemed to deal with it better. But now CLG on the cusp of victory may get a remake. And judging by the reactions, it might well be that way. I saw Redbeard was there, the VP of Esports, talking to them. How do you come back from that?
You just keep going. I mean,
it was working, I guess.
It was working.
They were ahead all the way.
It seems like they did find something. They were playing extremely passive. They were stalling for late game, and until WE can crack the code of CLG's Turtle, that was going to keep happening. So really, if you're discussing between the teams right now, WE's all about saying, how do we fight these guys? Because they don't want to fight us. And CLG is just thinking, let's take it to another level. Let's not even, maybe not, but it seems like that's the way things keep going. Because 7 kills, 63 minutes into the game for CLG just says, if they're winning that way, I mean, you just keep going more extreme. That might be what they end up doing if we see the 5th game.
I mean, of course, there's all sorts of little things that happen throughout the game that can change the course and the direction of it. And, who knows? Sometimes that's a toss of the dice. You're out of position just a little bit. That they get that kill that maybe you normally wouldn't give up, and that can change the outcome of a game. And, I mean, the fact that it's 7-9 kills, 63 minutes in, the amount of gold, of course, you guys were talking about it, but the Ward cheers every time it was going down. And, hopefully, wow.
That tells me it's a remake. They are going to discuss tactics. That's what that tells me. Everybody is backed away to discuss tactics. That can only be what it is.
Could be the break. Players do need to go to the bathroom. That's what had to happen after the last remake. And this is just a marathon for these guys. If that's going to be their, we don't have final word on that, but mentally and even physically, because they probably haven't eaten, to be fair. Like, they might have eaten before the match, but with how much energy you're exerting during this, they're going to get hungry, maybe shaky. So much micromanagement is required in these situations. It's really physical preparation. Freak was talking yesterday about how you need to eat a good breakfast, you need to go to bed early. These things are coming into account here because this is a marathon.
I'm so glad that you brought that up, because people think that sitting down and playing a computer game, whether that be professional or casually, is not something that takes, energy away from you or drains you. But these guys are playing at the top level. There's the top 12 teams that were here at the World Playoffs. Endurance is absolutely a factor that comes into play when you're on a day like this. Now, CLG made that point. CLG.EU made that point that they were already concerned about playing a quarterfinal and potentially a semifinal. So this will be a true test of endurance for either CLG or WE, regardless of who moves forward, as a result of that. And it is very, very real. That's why these guys practice for multiple hours a day, not only because it's sometimes the best use of their time, but you've got to be ready for it. Whether you're in a one-man, or single or double elimination bracket and you're fighting your way from the loser bracket, or you're playing what is now kind of turning into an extended series, these guys are now being tested on another mental level that normally you're not necessarily having to deal with when you come into a game. You come in, you sit down, you play, then you go off, get some food, rest a little bit, play another game. Here we're seeing them face those odds, really deal with that endurance. Who's got it, who doesn't, that could determine the victor of this final game.
Yeah, and this is where you start seeing the mistakes slip in. You know, things
Exactly.
will happen. You know, players will just. It may be at the start. I mean, this was the first time Yellow Pete's had a lead over Wei Zhao. The very first time he got that kill right at the start, and pretty much a 1v1. Mistakes like that might happen. You know, they might go back and forth. You don't know. Just a single misclick. We've seen it before in tournaments. Someone's flashed by mistake. They were just doing something. They were just prepping their hands, and they flashed by mistake in their own base. Things like that start to happen, and God forbid it happens in the next match if we were to have a remake. I'm still waiting for word on that one, but honestly, it's a scary situation for both teams.
You've also got to consider what are the other teams thinking going into this. They thought they were going to play, you know, a while ago. They're now sitting on the edge. You do get those nerves. You do start to think about, you know, what we're going to do against this team. You've got more time to think about it. Do you start overthinking it? You know, you've got to really protect yourself and your team when you're in these situations and just kind of go with the flow. I know it's easier said than done because, you know, being on standby, getting ready to play. I'm sure the teams that were watching that game were like, okay, guys, let's start, you know, centering ourselves.
They may have even set up.
I can tell you now,
I think they have.
when we came to join after the remake, the first remake, the game was there. It was Moscow 5 Taipei Assassins. All 10 members were in there. So behind that stage, it's a rotating stage. They were ready to go. They've been there probably about 3 or 4 hours now, ready to go. How do you keep yourself on the edge there?
And
they've had to just go off, get food,
At
do
what
whatever.
point do they, you know, that you've got to turn it on at some point, right? You don't just like, oh, okay, I'm going to get up from my nap and get up and play. No, this is a tournament for $2 million, or $2 million, that'd be a lot of money. $2 million on the line. You've still got to turn that on sometime, and it's really hard to figure out when you're supposed to turn your game face on in a situation where you're not even quite sure when the previous series is going to end.
And if we think of what the rest of the tournament is thinking about that, Azubu Frost hasn't had to wait and set up. They're just going to wait to see who ends up coming out of this marathon games. I got to say that does give them a bit of an edge later on because these teams are going to be real tired. We talked earlier about what kind of advantage do you get having the quarterfinal played on Friday as opposed to Saturday. And these teams are going to be exhausted, whereas if this game happened yesterday, they would have had the rest, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I think that's a great point that Azubu Frost will absolutely have an advantage going into the semifinals because they're going to be fresh. They've actually gotten a chance to watch an extra game of one of their opponents, right, to see if there's anything else that they can catch. And those guys are studying them like a hawk. And that is one thing that we've noticed throughout this entire tournament consistently is that when one team is off their route ready to go on, they are playing very, very close attention to what is going on in the other games, what they're doing, the teams, et cetera, the strats. So I have to agree with you, Jad, and I think that could be a huge advantage for Azubu Frost.
Well, we've heard word, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to have a remake. It's going to happen. So, I know what you feel. So CLG.EU currently, they have the option, which they're going to have to think about. They can remake with the exact same picks, or they can remake afresh, like Team WE allowed them to in Game 2.
And really, they actually need time to think about this. We said same thing World Lead had. They get 10 minutes to make this decision if they want to. Then there'll be probably a short break after that, so they can actually be ready for the 5th game. They need to just reset their minds in a lot of ways. Everyone, in a sense, has to do that because this is not something I ever expected to happen here.
You're so right. And additionally, WE now, I mean, let's erase that game now. They get that opportunity. They get that second chance. I was thinking about it. I was like, you know, if CLG wins this, it's kind of like they had their own